Hello, fellow aspirants. This is me, Dr. Jagdish Jagtap, and in today's podcast, we'll be talking about what the French was Napoleon's contribution. So let's begin. This is some information about me. His first and foremost important contribution is providing political stability in France, because as we know, he was the son of the revolution. So during the time that he got control of France, France was in horrendous difficulties and a lot of instability. We can, like, from the revolution history, we know that we had the directory, before that we had the convention. So he provided political stability to France. His most important contribution is Code Napoleon. This Code Napoleon, in his own words, when he was on the island of Elba, he said, Ki, I have won 40 battles, but more important than that is my Code Napoleon. So, just a broad features of this code was religious tolerance, individual rights and duties. He allowed divorce, and there were marriage laws. Parents and children's duties towards each other were specified, and private property was protected. So this entire and many more belong to this Code Napoleon. Following this, he also gave a code of civil procedure, code of criminal law. They were modified later on, but even to this date, his Code Napoleon survives in France, and many countries have liberally borrowed from this Code Napoleon. Importantly, he established the Bank of France, and this Bank of France was helpful both for the government, because he waged lots of wars in Europe, and these wars were financed by this Bank of France, and businessmen also were profited because they got credit and they had a safe avenue to deposit their money. He started the practice of this Legion of Honor. Now this was a very humble fellow with humble origins, and he had risen to great heights because of his merit. So he wanted to promote meritocracy in France. So that is why he constituted this Legion of Honor. And this was the ribbon, and this was the medal and the ribbon which he himself penned on the recipient. And using this, he got a lot of people who had migrated out of France, fearing Napoleon. He got them back to France and made them comfortable about working for the glory of France. So that was a major contribution of Napoleon. Moving on, he reached this peace agreement with Pope. This is called as Concordat. What happened during the revolution was the revolutionaries had taken all the lands which belonged to churches in France, or all the lands which belonged to the institution of church, and so the Pope was really pissed at the revolution of France. So once Napoleon got power, he knew that lot of his population was Catholic, so he could not alienate the Pope. So what he did was, he had an agreement with the Pope. First point was that henceforth Napoleon would choose all the bishops, but formally the Pope would appoint them. So that made the Pope happy, that at least in formal methods his authority was upheld. Secondly, these lands which had been confiscated by the government would be given back to the church, but those lands which had been taken by the government and distributed among the peasants would remain with the peasants only. Now with this, he achieved two methods, like एक तीर में दो निशाने. One, he made the Pope happy. Second, he made the peasantry also happy, because he did not grab their lands away. Trade and commerce flourished during Napoleon's regime. Now he was continuously waging wars and expanding his territory, so there was a lot of demand for many manufactured goods for the army and all. So trade and commerce flourished during that time. He did a lot of beautification works in Paris and cities around it, and a lot of public works like canals were dug during his time. He tinkered with his education system. He started semi-military schools. He had a lion's share in establishing the University of France. and in general he focused more upon technical education, scientific education rather than primary education. And he was opposed to giving primary education role to the church, but since there were many less players in this primary education system, so he allowed the church to run its own schools. He was not very much in favor of religion, but he believed that it's a social cement, like it holds the society together. So he did not oppose the religious authorities. He reorganized administration and introduced a large component of centralization. Now, since he was the emperor, this is bound to happen, and but he ensured effective local governments. Now, by this, these local governments were not democratic. He used to appoint his own agents, and they used to report to him. So these local governments were effective, but nonetheless, they did not have any like autonomy. They were answerable to Napoleon himself. In the case of colonization, he tried to establish colonies but couldn't do much, and most importantly, he sold Louisiana to France, to USA. So this we have this. This was Thomas Jefferson. This is Napoleon, and in 1803, he sold this large part of America which France had to USA. This is called the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. Now history has its own ways of laughing at people, because we can see that all the territories that Napoleon won in Europe he lost, and to finance those wars he had sold this territory. So in the end he lost this also, and the territories which he won also. Had he kept this territory, who knows what might have happened. Thanks a lot. If you have any queries, do write them in the comments. I'll reply as soon as possible. Thank you. Have an awesome day.